call the meeting to order. Have a roll call. Everyone's here.
Oh, here.
And then the first item on the agenda is the election of officers, so I'll hand it over to the town council.
You need to ask for president, for some nomination for president first, right, for the council, and then you hand that over. It doesn't matter.
I nominate Rollins,
For what?
council president.
A second. Any other nominations for president of the council?
I nominate Al Beavers.
Any seconds? Okay, I think you're saying this, but do we need to vote then, since there's no second on the other?
Yeah, any discussion? Motion?
Okay, we have a motion to nominate me as president of the council, and it's seconded. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All, any against, say no.
No.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. I need nominations for the vice president of the council. Somebody nominate a vice president? I would nominate Stan for vice president of the town council.
I second that.
Any other nominations? Okay, that being, all in favor of Stan for president, or vice president, say yes.
Yes.
Anybody opposed, say no. Okay, we need a motion for nomination for president of utilities.
I nominate Jen.
Need a second? I'll second it for president of utilities for Jan. Any other nominations? Okay, that being, all in favor of Jen for president of utilities, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say no. Okay, we need a nomination for vice president of utilities.
I nominate Al Beavers.
I second it. Any other nominations for vice president of utilities? Okay, that being said, we need all in favor of Al for vice president of utilities, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, we got our people there. Okay. I'd like to read a letter here. I'm not good at remembering a bunch of stuff, so. I have a statement to make. First of all, welcome to 2020. The council seated before you now believes that we are servants of the people. We have promised you transparency and an open government, and we plan to take action soon, such as starting an online document sharing site. We believe in managing the growth of the town so that it complements and enhances our town. We believe in being physically responsible and in being fair to everyone, including citizens, taxpayers, employees, and other elected officials. We have a number of priorities for the coming year. There's no real urgency for some, such as revising the voting ordinance and revising the golf cart ordinance. Others will require immediate action, and that's why we are here today with an introductory business for all your new council. We want to take actions on two urgent concerns. One is a redevelopment commission. It is vital that a redevelopment commission represents the vision and goals of the council. With that mandate, we want to make changes to the commission members to ensure the vision of the redevelopment commission is in line with the current newly elected council and that the council's goals are shared. Secondly, we want to freeze all employee benefits, but not the pay, at the 2019 levels, pending our own review and research of benefit changes the cost to the town, the impact to our budget. We will be doing our own research, and that will compare our compensation packages to other towns our size. If we determine changes need to be made, we will make them. We will also be doing a thorough review of our current employee handbook with the assistance of human resource professionals. To give us time to do that, we are freezing the insurance stipend at the amount provided in the 2019 salary ordinance and all other benefits at the levels provided in the current employee handbook. Your council is here to manage both routine and new business of the town, but we want to encourage public input on all topics, big and small. You will be free to speak here, and you are free to contact any of us outside public meetings. And we will be providing contact information for all of us in many places, such as online and on the door of the town hall. Finally, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve the town for the next 4 years. We are not perfect and we will make mistakes, but we promise to always work for the best for you, the town, and the community.
So who
Okay.
wrote that letter, for the record?
I just read it and I wrote it.
I'll need a copy of that for the public meeting.
Well, I'll give you a new clean one. So, without my notes on it. Okay, the first thing of these two items, Reed has sent us information on making changes to the redevelopment commission. We are still gathering information and will discuss at a later time. We just don't quite have it all synced yet, I guess. On the second thing is on making changes to the salary ordinance. Reed on changing the medical back to $350 from $500 and changing the part-time medical, taking it away, which we never had before. I'm not quite, we want to accomplish that because this all amounts to an $8,000 increase stacked on top of some pretty decent raises. Anyway, Reed, if you want to comment on that, I don't know where we stand quite on that. If we can do that, if we can make 2 changes tonight on the existing ordinance, make a motion, initial it, so we can move on, and then we can be gathering over the next few months information to change, to tweak the rest of the ordinance. Or you take it from there for a minute.
Yeah, so the only way that you can freeze or in any way change benefits is through actually a legislative process of amending the salary ordinance. There's a different standard for that depending on what we're looking at. So one is just a town employee, one is an elected official, and then the other one that is another distinction is the clerk treasurer's appointed utility clerk. Those are all different from a legal standpoint, and it's something that I need to look into further regarding the utility clerk. I think that is not, it's a more complex legal issue that I think the town council needs to fully understand, and since this is our first time, there's just legal issues that you're not aware of, and it's not something that I can advise in a public meeting, but it's something that I've been working on and can put all that together so you guys could make an informed decision. So my recommendation is to wait until you can come back at whatever time, but another public meeting to actually amend the salary ordinance however you see fit.
Well, that's okay. If we need to do that, we need to make a meeting we're trying to get this done on this before the first pay period, so that we're not taking away salaries or anything, we're just trying to keep the benefits at the 2019 level till we check on everything. But once you start writing checks, you can't take that money back. We can still amend it, but it'd be a lot better to, it'd just be a lot better to set up a meeting before the next pay period, I guess, because this is something we want to do.
The next pay period is next week.
Okay, so we'd set it up for next week. But this is something we feel needs to be done. It's not like you're you know, you can always give the money back retroactive on any of this stuff.
No, you can't. Not on everything. I talked to State Board of Accounts today, especially on an elected official. And Reed also needs to check in, because I've talked to State Board of Accounts today, and I've talked to AIM, and I've talked to Financial Solutions, that there is a statute in the compensation that says an elected official and a clerk treasurer's salary and compensation for all of their benefits, because it's a total and pay, cannot be adjusted in that said year before
Okay,
it would have
whatever.
rolled over.
We will go by whatever guidelines and laws that are allowed. But I've also talked to the state, and some of us have, that they've also said something a little different to us.
But did
And
you also explain that there's two
let me
separate
finish. Can I
salary
finish the
ordinances?
Can I finish the sentence, please? And also, I'll hand that information over to Reed. We want to do it legally, we want to do it in the right order, we don't want to, we just feel that a lot of this was done, this town's been divided, and there's a lot of animosity against each other, and we feel a lot of stuff was heaped on at the last month before a new board took over, and we promised the people of this town would be fiscally responsible, and we've been spending a lot of money, and we got voted in. This board is new because they want us to do things and calm some of these prices down and stuff like that. But we're not going to do something against the law. We will do it legally. So we can Reed the information and everything in the next few days, and let's, I don't know, what else, what do you guys have to say?
So that, I need clarification on, are you wanting me to research whether you can reduce that $500 for Michelle as an elected official?
No, we want to do it. We think you can do it. That's what the state told me you can do, but you can research it more if you want to.
I mean, my initial research is that that is not allowed. I mean, when you look right at that statute, but, I need to know because, you know, then, I mean, that's something that's on the table though, is,
Okay,
not when I
are
started.
we allowed right now to make a motion to lower those two, or if we're not, then I would presume we need to give you any information we have, and you need to look at it again with our thoughts behind it, to see if you can or could, because the state's saying something else, other people are saying different things, you know, so. But anyway.
I just want to clarify that the email exchange that I reviewed between you and the State Board of Accounts didn't have any of those important distinctions.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like the term employee or employee was used, but, you know, those distinctions between whether it's an elected official, whether it's an employee of the town, or whether it's an appointed person who is not actually an employee of the town, but they're, you know, the pay is, so that's why I'm saying that all this is a little more nuanced, but.
Yeah. And I know it's popped on and everything. Al, did you have something?
Michelle had brought to our attention in the past year the need for the salary increases for employees in our town to operate. And for all that work, that's great. It shows your tenacity to go forward with these things. But the way that was checked was when we knew what the salaries were, or at least I did. I managed through the same sources you just spoke of, like AIM and things like that, to verify that we are in line as far as salary goes. When you talk about the things such as vacation time, sick leave, the point of when these start, when they accrue, and this business of the benefits. This council now would like to do nothing, we're not going to change anything with the salary. What in the context of this is to take a look at this. We're going to, we'd like to revisit this. Okay, that doesn't mean even if there's going to be a change, but if there has to be one, let's make that. So, in all good faith, if you want to call it, I think what the motion would be to give us a period to have a chance to go through this. Also, the information that you gathered, we'd like to see what you have on that. You know, if you have something in writing that you've done this work on, we'd like to see it.
And currently, right now, Tammy is helping me, utility clerk Tammy. So we are gathering information for about salaries and wages on all of the levels that we pay on with 30 different towns that are either the same population or less. We're also gonna look at people around us who are competing towns, say City of Lafayette, West Lafayette, because we also need to realize that we don't need to undersell our employees. I'm not saying that we need to overcompensate them, but we also need to be competitive with that. I am also gathering from other towns of, not necessarily just our size, but that do not meet the law requirement where you have 50 full-time employees where you're required to provide insurance. So I am gathering from other towns that have, say, the 2 full-time employees and the 1 elected official, or however, if they provide any form of insurance, healthcare stipend, or anything, and how they do it, to also provide to show that. And so far, the 2 people that I've gotten back today, one town offers $650 a month for their 2 employees and their elected official, and another town pays $3,200 a month just for 2 employees to have insurance. And from what I'm already gathering from people, they're saying what our town is offering is a steal compared to what other towns. So I am fine with doing that, but I hope the board is willing to gather and look at my information to show the broad aspect too, and not just go off of towns that are picked to make it look like we're overcompensating. But I know it's not, from what I've gathered, it's not just as easy as coming in here and saying that you're gonna freeze it. Tammy's situation, her benefits were approved for her 1 year. They don't start next week. Her benefits where she can earn sick time, vacation time, and the healthcare stipend doesn't start until March. So she's not even in question right now, so she has nothing to freeze at this point. The only people that is in question to freeze is me, Scott, and Mark. But since we have 2 separate salary ordinances, mine is stated in an elected official salary ordinance that says that it cannot be adjusted up or down, well, it can't be down anyways, except for the benefits, until you go to talk about the 2021 salary ordinance. The non-elected salary ordinance, yes, that can be amended, but from what I'm told, you can't just freeze it. You actually have to do the process of amending the salary ordinance to lower it, and then if you decide to raise it back up or do whatnot, then you have to go through the process of amending it yet again, because it's an ordinance.
We know that, and whatever proper procedure to do that, this board, I think, would like to amend it, change it, do whatever to the medical, wherever we can, reduce it to the 2019 levels. And we'll look at all the other stuff as time goes on, but we will not. We will do our own research, and Michelle, we won't cook the books or pick certain towns.
I'm just saying, look at both pictures.
Michelle, please, I don't interrupt you, so please don't interrupt me. You also, I disagree with some of your figures in the past and stuff, and we can go over both sides, but we ought to both pick 50 towns that are all the size of our town and go from there. And maybe we are getting a steal on people, pay-wise, benefit-wise, or whatever, and maybe we aren't. But a lot of this, it's a new board, and the people voted this board in because they want some change, and I think we've been spending a lot of money, and what I hear out there is that we need to watch what we spend, so.
Well, for the record, everything that was approved in the salary ordinance was approved in the budget by the DLGF, and it was not asked to lower anything like it did last year for 2019 by $23,000 in the MVH. So we are approved. Financial Solutions was here, gave a 5-year sustainability that said we are perfectly fine, and I specifically asked if there was any reason to cut or eliminate anything. So
Yeah, well, we're not.
we're not in a financial position to need
I might
to.
add something here. You dropped the fact that we live next to 2 big cities.
Mhm.
And we're not that. That does put us at a disadvantage,
Mhm.
even if we're in the same county.
Right.
So yes, those things will have to be considered. But to actually compete with what they have to work with is gonna be tough.
Right, but we also need to look at, people can come and try and take Scott, Tammy, Mark, or any of our deputies. So it's not, you're gonna look at the broader picture of towns our size, but you also need to look at that other towns can try and come and take our valid, dependable employees to offer them more.
And for that reason, that's why there's no question of their salaries right now.
Right,
That will stay,
correct.
But
okay?
Michelle, a year ago, all those every employee, part-time, full-time, whatever, was hired with they knew what the pay was at the time. And they stuck around for years getting that pay, and we agree with increasing pay and everything, but heaping, adding 8,000 to medical and adding plus some of the raises are 5,000, 6,000, 3,000, whatever, it's a lot of money. I mean,
So what figure did you not agree with me on that you were talking about? That you said some of my figures? Is it the $11,000 or the 11% increase that we discussed the other day that you got, that nobody else got?
okay, Michelle, I've never, and I've got it documented on all the minutes, I've never asked for.
You don't have to ask for it.
Michelle, please let me talk. I never wanted a raise, I never asked for a raise, and I worked for 8 years and donated my entire salary to this town. That 11% raise was, I got the minutes that I asked for no raise, and even the board, no raise on sometimes. That 11% was done, I think, there's always a reason, like you found out about Alina Merkel, that it was wrong. That 140 wasn't given to her as medical or anything, it was given because she cleaned the offices. That 11% was given, I think, and I have to find the exact minutes, that somebody said, to this extent, let's raise that clerk's salary up so we get somebody to go against Ron, and then the next year, that nephew of that person went against Ron as town clerk, okay? Because there was some animosity that I didn't feel some of these people were turning in wrong things and stuff like that. So there's always a reason for everything, but I never ask, and I go to the extent of I have to get special permission from the state of Indiana to not take money, I mean, so what I disagreed with you is you bring up one point that was done against my will, but you don't talk about the $230,000 I donated to this town, or
And
left
we
in the town.
did have this discussion that some people, you cannot expect people to work for free just because you are in a financial
That's not the
situation
point, what
to
I
be
just
able
said.
to
What I
work for
just
free.
said is you asked me, the question was, you're getting off the topic. The question was, did I disagree with some numbers or 11%? And what I'm saying is, we're not talking about whether I think everybody else should take less or not. What I'm saying is you brought up 11% 1 year, but you don't take my whole years up at this town hall, I maybe made what, 1.25% per year, if I even made money, even
But
took money.
From Financial Solutions' point, we were not in a position financially to give you an 11% raise, and as you directly said to me, I didn't have
give the
to
ra-
accept the
I didn't give the
4% raise
raise.
that I got.
didn't, Michelle, that's why I donate everything, I do your flowers, I do your bark, I do everything, because I give it back. I give everything back. I took money
But
for
that's
putting the
your
gazebo.
financial choice.
I took money for putting the gazebo together and donated to the flag fund.
And that's your financial
Yeah.
choice, but you can't
But
expect people
don't
to
blame
work
me for
free.
taking 11% is what I'm saying. I didn't take it, I didn't ask for it, I didn't want it. Jeez.
So, Ron, you mentioned, we quite a few times in this board, and I want to make the clear distinction that, oftentimes you're not speaking for me.
I know.
As a member of this board. I think this is a very ill-advised topic that you're taking up. And, you rattled off 4 things that you basically wanted to, go back and look over or stop or redo. And, it seems a very poor choice of the board taking over and replowing ground that's already been plowed before. I think, this town is certainly tired of the bickering, okay? And I think everybody was elected on this board, to move this town forward, not to continue to sit up here and fight over some of this stuff that looks like you're preparing to to fight over.
Well, I think the town went to the election and voted a board in that wanted some of these changes, and that's why we're voted in, because we ran on these changes. They apparently voted most of us in on these changes, so we don't want to stand, if you don't want to do any arguing or anything, don't argue with us. You know, we're in the majority here on what we're thinking. There's 4 here thinking that we should lower the things. You're the one that's arguing.
Well, not arguing, like, you know.
Well, yes, you are.
You mentioned 4 items here, you know, golf cart voting ordinance, Dayton Redevelopment Commission, and the benefits, and.
Well, those are
and
what people
basically
want to
all-
look at again.
All those are, well, I don't know any of those were, you know, in the campaign at any point in time. And, you know, basically, you're just, you know, you're preparing to replow ground that's been plowed before. I understand tweaking things, looking at things, but just come in and start, you know, freezing stuff, I think is ill-advised.
Some things were on the, you know, when we were vetting the neighborhoods, as I was. But this business about our employees and their benefits and such, that was pretty much dropped during the campaign, so there was nothing brought up about it. That was brought before the council during a campaign. So, when you say there wasn't much said about it, or, that's true, there wasn't. It was just pushed in within your last,
Within the last few months, yeah, as you're working through budgets.
yeah,
and-
so you can
And
understand.
coming up to the salary ordinances.
So now that we're coming in, accepting the fiscal responsibility, that's why we want to revisit it.
So, you know, it could be revisited at the end of this year, again, when you're doing budgets and you're doing salary ordinances and stuff like that, you know, that's the,
Well,
to me, that's the proper place to do that and have your
I
research.
think it should be clarified as quickly as we can do it right now.
I think so too, something.
And that way it's settled, we're all in
Well,
agreement.
you 4 have the majority, so you know, undoubtedly you
Right,
will.
but still,
I disagree with it.
you're a part of us, and so is Tammy. And so are our 2 major
That's true.
elected employees.
That's for
Or Tammy and Michelle, pardon me.
Well, my question is coming from Jen. You're a stay-at-home mother, your husband is a police officer. So if your husband came home in November and told you, guess what, honey? We're gonna get more for health insurance to go towards our benefits, so you guys prepare for that because you have say a $5,000 deductible per person in your family, and then he gets a new board, and they come in and he comes home and tells you that that's been taken away because they need to look into it. How would you feel about that if your husband came home? Just because when it's been approved, there's no financial reason, their Financial Solutions, who is Tippecanoe County's financial advisor, or Lafayette's.
I can honestly say we wouldn't budget the money until we got it.
There was an ordinance that was passed that was promised it.
Until we have the money, we don't spend it, honestly.
Do you see a distinction between running this town and versus a corporation?
No, but the budget was approved, the ordinance was approved, there was DLGF.
So you're acting only what you say is a protective letter of the law.
That it was approved, there's no financial reason.
I'm asking you a question. Do you believe that everything that is on the table now, you're defending on the letter of the law?
I'm doing it by the letter of an ordinance that is a law, yes. It states that those benefits are being provided to our employees, and now a board comes in 48 hours
Okay.
after
Have
being
you worked for
on.
anyone who's had a change of ownership or a change of corporations?
This is not a
where
corporation,
they-
this is a government.
Well, you understand that we're having to take this over. The fiscal
First-
responsibility of upholding that.
Correct, but this
Okay.
fiscal
But
plan
you
has
still
already been
understand
approved.
why we want a little time on this, and why I want to get it done as quickly as possible.
Okay, well, you can't
And
retroact.
don't shake your head, no. Please, Ashley.
I think
I
it's
need you
ill-advised.
to listen to us. I'm not saying to change your mind.
There's a salary ordinance that's adopted every year.
That's a little confusing when you call it a salary ordinance when the tax benefits to it. I have no problem with the salaries. So tying those 2 words together does not help us make our decisions.
If you're talking about sick time and vacation time, that's not That's in the handbook, that's not in the salary ordinance. The only thing that's in the salary ordinance is the salary and the insurance stipend and what the president and APC person gets paid. Everything else is in the employee handbook.
So the
So,
term that you need to look at is compensation. Okay. So that, what the statute said is that compensation of an elected town officer may not be changed in the year for which it is fixed, nor may be reduced below the amount fixed for the previous year. And then in paragraph A, compensation is defined, and that's what we're looking, and then, you know, there's some other language in there, but, you know,
But the benefit,
if compensation that has been legislated in the 2019, by the 2019 board is reduced, that's at the point that you suddenly could have exposure for the town council for violating the law and potentially having a, you know,
so it's
a dispute between, or, you know, at least a conflict between the town council and the clerk treasurer.
Okay.
So that's the question that.
So you're saying, is the benefits the compensation too? Is that?
I mean,
What I was told by the state
compensation-
is that the salaries are different from the benefits. The benefits, you can take away, reduce, increase, whatever, but not the salaries of the elected officials.
it's in the salary ordinance, that's why it's
So-
considered compensation.
It says compensation means the total of all money paid to an elected town officer for performing duties as town officer, regardless of the source of funds from which money is paid. The term includes all employee benefits paid to an elected town officer, including life insurance, health insurance, disability insurance, retirement benefits, and pension benefits. And they go on to say, and list the items below that for the purpose of determining an increase or a decrease in compensation does not include. So, you know, I think that I mean, from my initial look, it's gonna be hard to say that that's not all compensation, that the $500, I think that's compensation, you can't change
So
it.
you can never take back any compensation ever then, but yet some of you are saying, wait a year to make this decision.
And what I started off with is that it's important to know your distinctions, because I'm not saying any of this for the town marshal or for Mark. It's completely different for the utility clerk, but for an elected official, you know, that's what the statute says. I mean, you know, that's what you need to look at. You know, when you look at some of these, I think that the intent is that if you are providing a benefit such as paying for health insurance, that they wanted to make sure that, you know, the town could actually increase or decrease if the insurance premium increases or decreases. You know, if you have a stipend or per diem allowed per statute and the state law changes, you know, or the mileage rate changes, that someone's not gonna argue, well, you can't actually pay more for the elected official because that's an increase. You know, they're trying to get away from those
Well,
technicalities.
In the past, we took clothing allowance and snapped our fingers in one meeting and just reduced it in half, or 600 to 100, one time 600 to 300.
And all that was done when we were working on salary ordinances and budgets.
They're also not elected officials, I
Yeah,
don't
but
get a
we're trying
clothing
to-
allowance.
We're trying to correct this before, you know, if you can't correct it now, what do you think it's gonna be to do in a year? You guys know that, it's gonna be 10 times as hard in a year, so maybe we better get some lawyers and look at it, and look at what that compensation, because the state, when I was a town clerk, they told me for 12 years, they told me this year, they told me last year, that those are benefits. They're compensation, but they're still benefits that can be taken away, okay? Or reduced or increased. And one thing we're talking here about with this fighting in this town, we're talking about, there's a lot of people that didn't agree with what the board just did 30 days ago, or 20 days ago, or 2 weeks ago. And I think it's the right of the townspeople, obviously, they voted, we're a different board up here, so apparently they wanted some change, or are we gonna look that we can't change anything because it was done 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, or 3 weeks ago?
I just said that you can change. I mean, you can go, I don't think it's an issue, a legal question regarding the town employees. For Mark, you can go from 500 to 300. For Scott, you can go from 500 to 300. So I think you're gonna, you know, if you wanna do what you wanna do, you're gonna have to,
But not
out
the
of 3
utility,
people,
not
you're
the
gonna have.
utilities clerk.
Well, I think that that's a completely different analysis, but, you know, because she does not fall within what I'm talking right here. This is only for an elected official. But, you know, I mean, that's what you guys, I mean, you need to have all this information so you can process it. But that's the problem, is that potentially out of the 3 people, one's gonna get 500, one's gonna get 350, or the other 2 are gonna get 350 and 350.
Well, there's 4 people. There's Michelle, there's Tammy, we think anyway.
Well,
There's
the 3 full-time people that are currently getting 500,
Yeah.
Tammy is going to
Get a
get
couple.
200 potentially. But, I mean, that's a whole different
So,
analysis.
so do you need to research it and tell us exactly, can we, on those 4 people?
Well, I'm telling
can
you
we
right
use-
now that I would not take that action at this meeting, because
Okay, well,
I think that, you know, if you wanted to take away that compensation, you know, to amend the salary ordinance right now, I would have concerns with the legality of that. So the next step would be, you know, give me whatever information you want, continue to research it, and it's your decision. You know, I'm just your attorney, and, you know, but, I mean, I'm just looking at what the plain reading of the statute is right here. I mean, it's gonna be challenging, and, you know, I mean, the reality
We
is
may
that,
find that there really is no need for the change of the benefit in the salary ordinance. So, for that reason, that's why we need to see what you have to support that, and then go on some guidelines, and then come to that later. Now, on the advisement from the attorney, we won't make that decision tonight.
that's what you guys all want, I agree with that, I think. We ought to,
I think you just have to do it opposite of what you wanted. So instead of freezing it until you find out, we have to leave it until you find out.
Yes.
well, our goal then is to do it quickly, I guess.
Right. I understand.
Well, first off, it was my own thought processes in looking at this. Is understand the salary and the medical is one entity alone within that. As far as the times, vacation and sick, that's a different issue.
Right.
So, but this is our first meeting.
Right.
So, under your advisement, and we'll take caution from here.
Well, okay, first of all, I don't think it's just me, but does any of the audience have any, we promised last year the audience could talk. So does anybody have any pluses or minuses on any thoughts before we finish this talk?
Cindy
State
Marsh,
your name.
749 Shady Lane. And I want to thank you for being fiscally responsible, because, as you know, we've been very critical of some of the spending decisions of the previous council.
We haven't been yet, but we're trying.
You're trying to, and you're on the right track, and thank you for revisiting some things that were wrongly or incorrectly done, like the golf cart ordinance and the voting district ordinance, absolutely for certain. We have 4 years to do that, so I thank you for stating that as one of your priorities. As far as what you're talking about right now with the freezing of the benefits, I think what I'm hearing Reed say is that you can go ahead and do the salary or the regular employee salary ordinance, make the changes that you want on that. And if I understood you right, that's the same information that you got from the State Board of Accounts. The State Board of Accounts did not make the distinction for an elected official except for their regular compensation. So let Reed research that would be my suggestion. So set that salary ordinance aside for the elected official, because the only change you were going to make to it was that
To do the
insurance
employee.
stipend, that go ahead and do the regular employee changes that you were going to make. It's just freezing at the 2019 level. It's reasonable it's reasonable to any logical person to do that. We all know what happened, and we all know how those benefits exploded after they lost the election. And we all know that it was copied from Lafayette, which we are not Lafayette. We do not have Lafayette's budget. I mean, if somebody, I don't think anybody that works for the quiet, sleepy little town of Dayton really wants to go work for Lafayette. Or if they do,
Can I
I'm
ask
sure they'll
you,
be
what,
worth more.
what do you think about that? Can we freeze it on the employees and not the?
You can't freeze it. You can make a decision to amend the salary ordinance, which, you know, we don't even have a copy of right here.
Well, it's one simple thing. It's reducing it from $500 to $350.
You still have to have the physical ordinance in front of you with the change.
Yeah,
Before it's
Can we make a
effective.
motion to have you draw that up?
My recommendation would be that, put that as a specific agenda item at the next public meeting, and then we, you know, we all have a copy of it, and we move to, you know, adopt it at that time, if that's what you want to do.
Can you prepare that?
Yes.
How soon could you prepare that?
As soon as you want.
Would you guys like to get that adopted before the pay starts paying? Like it'd be a special quick meeting next week, or would you like to wait 2 weeks, or what would you like to do?
I think it makes more sense to do it before it gets paid out for the first time.
Yes. I make a motion to have Reed change the employee, I'm saying this right, change the medical from 500 to back to 350, and have it ready for the middle of next week. We'll have a special meeting just for that, and we'll adopt that. Okay, now make it legal, right? And then we can go and we and you and everybody can research this other stuff, and we go from there.
Correct.
So I make that motion. Second?
I second it.
Got a motion on the table here, and seconded. Everybody in favor say yes, aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Anybody opposed say no?
No.
Okay.
So just to discuss so that you guys, the new board, is on the same page, the explosion of benefits that are being talked about. The vacation was not changed. Nobody gets more vacation. It was just changed on when you receive that first week of vacation. Second, the sick days are still 6 sick days. They just now can roll over. You cannot cash them in. You cannot use them as a personal day, as part of your vacation. If you cap them and you quit, you still cannot bring them in or cash them out. If you miss more than 3 days, you still have to return to work with a doctor's note to prove that you were sick. So you can't just, quote, screw the town by using your sick time. Regarding Mark and Scott, again, it doesn't matter if they have 3 sick days or 50 sick days. They are salaried. It doesn't matter if they have 1 week or 5 weeks of vacation. They work 3 days, they work 5 days, they work 14 days of a pay period. They're still getting the same check all the time. If Scott's out, not trying to get you sick, Scott, but if Scott has a heart attack and he's off of work for 30 days, Scott's still getting paid. And those are the only people that regard vacation. Tammy now gets to earn vacation for the number of hours that she works. So every 30 hours that she works, she can earn 2.23 hours. Yes, she now is allowed to have sick days, but she can only cap hers at 15. Again, it all applies. So that needs to be taken into consideration when you're talking about explosion of benefits. Scott and Mark, who both work over 40 hours, Scott has over 600 hours of overtime worked that he has not been paid for. So when Scott takes a week off, he's already worked that time somewhere else in the year, and he's not been paid extra for it. So the town is not losing any money. They're not forking out any more money. So you guys need to take that into consideration when you think about benefits, because all of that, it's Scott and Mark. They are the only 2 full-time people. Yes, it was put in the employee handbook that Tammy, the utility clerk, It doesn't go for the police, it doesn't go for an as-needed employee.
We'll be discussing those parts at another meeting, so
But I
that's
think that
good.
they need to know that going into researching that, and I've talked to numerous people that have salary employees that know, it's common sense. They're gonna get paid whether they're here or not, whether they're on vacation, whether they're sick, whether they technically have the days or not. They're still getting
Well,
paid.
then we need to look at, like, things like in there, would you hire somebody June the 30th, a full-time person, they get a week vacation, but yet July, one day later you hire them and they don't get any vacation.
And that's fine,
so-
do 30, 60, 90 days,
But we
whatever,
can
that's
ex-
fine, but I'm
We can
saying,
explain, do all that at another meeting and we'll get this.
they were not given any extra time. And they got the same exact amount of sick days, it just now is allowed to roll over and accumulate. So those things need to be taken into consideration when you're thinking about it, especially when our 2 full-time employees are salary, they're not hourly.
Okay, do we have any other in the audience that want to talk about this subject, or Sue, or whoever you are?
Oh, sorry, okay.
Supervisor 750 Shady Lane. I work for several people, and salary is salary. There isn't any overtime. It's just, you get paid, salary's salary.
Correct,
So you don't work 40 hours and get overtime.
correct,
You get the same amount, no matter how many hours.
correct.
Then how come they have 600 hours?
He has worked over 600 hours, over 40 hours a week. He's not been paid for them. He has to, the police, well, actually, really, all the employees have to keep a log of every single hour that they've worked, every single hour that they've taken sick time, vacation, so it's a log of how many.
You didn't understand what I said. I said the salary is the salary.
Correct,
You get that.
correct,
If you work 40 hours or 60 hours, you get the same amount.
correct,
That's called a salary.
correct.
So how is he getting overtime?
He's not getting overtime. He has worked, 40 hours is considered full-time. And by law, I've talked to Charlie Pride before, God rest his soul, passed away. He said that Scott is legally actually supposed to be being paid overtime because he is an officer that patrols in his car. But however, he has not asked for that to be paid for that overtime. He just has his comp time that he does. But yes, everybody knows,
Well,
so the point
I
is
think
that
we'll check into that.
a full-time work week is 40 hours.
On the
It's
six-
not, but I just always understood that a salary,
Correct.
you get paid basically a little more.
And exactly, as you said, it does not matter how many hours you work. So if Scott takes off 3 days because he's sick or has vacation,
He gets the same amount.
exactly, thank you, that was my exact point. So
I-
there's no money
I think
lost.
the disconnect, you said that Marcia Taylor has worked 680 hours more
Is that
Yeah.
correct, Scott, that you
Yeah.
have 600 hours over your normal,
over his normal
like your
hours.
40-hour
Over his
work
normal
week?
40, he's worked 680 over the course of the year,
Yeah, I
more than
understand
that.
Correct.
She's not saying that he's been compensated for that 680.
I understand that. I thought salary was, you go to work, if you
Correct.
work 12 hours or.
You don't get compensated for it.
Correct.
You just don't.
The point is saying that we're losing money when they're off sick or off on vacation because they're not here a week for that 40 hours.
She doesn't understand.
We're saying that
You don't understand. I understand.
he's worked that 40 hours that he's taken off at some other point in the year. So the town's not losing money. He has worked that 40 hours that he's taken off at some other point of the year. He's never been compensated for it because he does not get overtime.
Did somebody say we're losing money, or did they make that comment tonight? or
Yes,
is that from
no,
another
Cindy
time?
has said that the fiscal
She had
responsibility.
said, I asked you, did somebody say that tonight? Not was it said in the past, did somebody say that tonight?
I don't know.
You're going on about all this, and it's,
To say that we're putting the town in a financial thing, we're throwing out money, we're not. They're not gaining any more money, or the town is not spending any more money, whether they are gone 30 days or have 3 weeks of vacation or 60 days
we
or
didn't
6
say that
days.
either. We just said merely, we're spending a lot of money, we need to look into it. Okay?
We're not spending any extra money that's already approved in the salary ordinance
Okay.
of their
This-
salary.
What's the difference between working a 40-hour week hourly And salary.
If somebody who is hourly gets paid 40 hours, and if they work over 40 hours, they get time and a half. If they're
That's right.
salary, yes.
If their salary.
You're not getting what I'm saying. When
You're
Scott
not
takes
getting
off,
what I'm saying.
okay, no, he has worked plenty of
I
time.
understand, he has worked that.
Correct, and he's not, so when he takes off his week, that's 40 hours,
Okay,
the town's not losing money.
how about you? When you work, you don't put in 40 hours, but you get a salary.
Who says I don't put in 40 hours?
I said that.
Okay, well, I'd like to compare your log with my log, because I'm constantly working, whether it's here or at home or anywhere else.
I don't know.
So thank you, Cindy.
Your job, I don't know that it is a 40-hour-a-week job.
Well, Cindy said herself that the whole reason why I have my bus job is so that you guys don't have to pay me more and I can earn more money by driving the bus, because it's not considered a full-time job.
You're bringing up
No.
This is interesting because
Yeah,
the way the council meetings were run is that after things were presented and voted and discussed among the council, it was only after all that was over with, then the floor was open for discussion. We just showed now how this discussion by the public in the interim of something like this should be done like this in meetings, not at the end of a meeting, then open it up for comment. It's to clear the air.
You're gonna make confusion and you're gonna have chaos.
Tammy, will these, let us try. It's our first hour on the job, for God's sakes. Let us try to open it up to the public, at least let them talk, without hammering them down or making them treat them like a fool.
well, if
Would
we
you
were
like to say,
transparent,
Tammy, if
and
you would
people
like to say
knew we were
something,
gonna
would
talk
you
about
like to come
employee
to the
benefits
table?
tonight, maybe there would be more people here. But that was not on the flyer that you had me post.
Okay, we have a,
It says it here.
On the agenda that Ron did not give me.
You're gonna correct that, or you're gonna make that change.
Correct.
We made a
So-
motion, we're gonna,
Do we have new email addresses for all the town council?
Yes, I emailed Al, Jen, and Stan today. They're set up, they need to contact Mark Jones to get their passwords, and then they will have the government, or they have the government emails, they just have to get a hold of him to get their passwords.
So I'll finish up the memo, send it out to all of you, and we'll get that on the agenda. But we do need to schedule a meeting.
guys, next Wednesday or Thursday, is anybody?
Can't do Thursday. Payroll can be
Wednesday.
in no later than Thursday.
Tuesday or Wednesday?
I'm open.
I'm open. Jen, you open?
Yep.
Ashley,
I'd prefer not Tuesday.
Wednesday?
That would be better.
Okay. How about 6 o'clock on Wednesday? You can post that, please.
What would you like for salary ordinance?
For
For the
this
subject?
one item, this one subject here. Change it.
Amended salary ordinance.
Amended salary ordinance. Should be quick, it should be sort of discussed.
I do need a number, actually, I just have that unsigned.
Okay,
For what,
do
the new one?
The numbers.
It's at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, yeah.
Actually,
I think the
just
non-election is
signed.
11, I'll have to double check, because one's 10 and one's 11.
Yeah, you get to send the word.
Okay,
Do you want the template?
does any of the council members have anything to bring up here for the first meeting? Ashley? Okay, Jen? Al? Anybody else from the audience have anything new or old to bring up, other than the salary stuff we're talking about? Actually, there she is.
All right. With the new council, welcome. I'm Natalie Steele from 749 Walnut Street. I wanted to bring forth an actual new topic. I wanted to propose, the town of Dayton, kind of as like a giant olive branch to the town, having the board consider doing a proposal to set up a
Town of Dayton Parks and Rec, having a community center, possibly a park be put in. I know a lot of the town is very concerned about the subdivision that's going in, and possibly another one sooner or later in the future going across the street with that land. I think having a community Parks and Rec would help take care of that. A Parks and Rec department, reading over a bunch of the Indiana code for establishing a Parks and Rec department for our town. We are able to get a lot of government grants for purchasing property that we can use for parks and establishing, you know, walking trails, playgrounds, all of that stuff, have a pond built in that subdivisions can't be put on. And, you know, as many acres as you want, you can have it incorporated into the town. I think it's wonderful for the town. Again, have a community center, either have one built or there's been a building that's been offered up to either lease or buy, to use as an existing community center, renovate it as needed. But I think that'd help kind of give a little buffer for the town, having the subdivisions put in, because we have a beautiful area put in. I think the town could use a nice park away from the highway. I know previously it's been talked about having a park out extended where Yost was going to go, and it was talked about it was too close to the highway, and they weren't able to put one out there. Dayton Road would be a great place to put one because it's not too close to the highway. But there are a lot of federal grants, a lot of state grants, even the county arts grants that are out there that can be put towards Parks and Rec.
Good idea.
But I think it might help kind of expand the town, put a buffer between us and Lafayette, and give the, you know, a nice place for kids to play, people to walk their dogs. Even have like a dog park, people can have their dogs run loose without, I know I'm one of the many that complain about having dogs running loose. Tried to stay quiet about it recently, but I think it'd be a good thing for the town. I've been reading a lot up on it. Basically, it also, short of just kind of getting the ball rolling, it's also mostly out of the town council's hands too. Basically what I've been reading is town council is the fiscal unit. You guys kind of get the ball rolling, but Parks and Rec becomes its own department. They have their own, they start their own budget, they get their own things going.
And their own employees that the town has to pay.
They have their own employees. They do their own hiring, they handle their own stuff, they have their own board of directors. They turn in their budget to the clerk, and that's pretty much it.
Sounds good.
So-
Can you email us any information you got? So we
I have the code pulled up, so.
Because the way I understand up north of Yost there in that field, there is, in that Sally Faye's planned development map, there is a park up there.
The use plan.
The use plan, yeah. And then I agree down here, if we get enough grant money, we could buy all the rest of the land down there and we wouldn't have to have any more subdivisions.
Yep, and actually the rest of the land that is across the street from where the subdivision that's going in, they are not opposed to having a park.
Well, that's one thing what we were talking about, trying to, as each subdivision goes in, they also provide plenty of green space and put in things to help so the town doesn't have to do everything. But that would be great planning across the road and everything.
And the owners are not opposed to having a park put in, a pond, a fishing pond, and walking trails, and thinking like Armstrong Park over in Lafayette, kind of like that, walking trails, trees, playgrounds.
In writing, looking and writing these grants, is there anything that, information you have that says who can write for those?
Anyone can propose the grants. It just kind of have to
But there are grants that can be written for, right?
Yes, you can hire grant writers, but their programs, Tiffany New Arts Federation, they have basically free member classes. You can just attend for a couple hours. Their grant writing programs. You go in, you eat pizza, and they're like, hey, here's how you submit a grant. And they kind of tell you the process you go through.
Okay, so no one has to have title to do this. Or-
No, you just turn it into the appropriate people.
Okay.
Give us as much information as you can. Well, certainly that sounds like a good idea.
So-
Even with the artwork and all that we were talking about before. So.
Yep, and I turned in that too, just
Okay.
waiting to hear back if I was
So
one of
as
the
a-
people chosen, so.
As a benefit to a TIF district, which requires a statute, you have a redevelopment commission. You know, that's another tool that the town can use to, you know, for a park and establishing a park.
Good.
So, you know, the TIF district may be able to fund that. You know, the redevelopment commission can get the park management part of it going. I think some conversation ought to take place with Tippecanoe County. I believe that Tippecanoe County manages, you know, various parks that are, you know, around the county, and you know, that may be a good management tool to look at in a park
West Lafayette Parks and
situation.
Rec is very active, more active than Lafayette. They're pretty non-existent. West Lafayette Parks and Rec is extremely active. So they're ones to talk to, to their board and kind of get ideas.
They
from
started
them.
all the tree funds and all the street planning and all that stuff.
They have a lot of kids programs, young programs that they do every season. They've got things and they have money rolling in like nobody's business. And it actually brings a lot of funds into community members. You know, if someone's wanting to teach an art class, you know, they charge a certain amount of money for supplies and their teaching fund.
Yeah,
So, you know, they get money for teaching, but it also brings money into the
we
town.
can contact.
But not only with Parks and Recs, there are grants that the towns can set up, libraries and town museums, and stuff like that. So there's grants for a lot of stuff. I mean, the whole Indiana Code 3610 talks about setting up all of that. So.
I think Beth Netzhammer on the west side handles all that parks and recreation and stuff, so we know her from the old days. We can contact her, she can give us a bunch of information. So.
Yeah, over the past like month and a half, I've
Okay,
been
so,
trying to look into it. So,
thank you very much.
but yeah, I thought it'd
Okay.
be kind of a good idea. And I know it's, you know, with the subdivision going in, it's been a concern with how fast things are growing. But if, you know, a park goes in, it adds more land to the town. But it adds kind of a buffer for everybody to
Yeah.
help out. So.
Okay, thank you. Good ideas. Anybody else in the audience?
Jamie?
Mike Harris, 69 Love, Signal to the East. I want to congratulate the new board, and as long as the three new ones do what the boss lady tells you, I think it'll be fine. I think you'll be the first one in trouble about it. But at any government meeting I went to, nobody's ever wore a hat, kind of disrespect the position. And
You did,
You're
Mike.
wearing one right now,
you
Mike.
shouldn't be wearing a hat.
You did.
Mike,
Never did. And I'm
Oh, you did.
meeting, never wore a hat.
Mike, you have too. It's
You
on
did.
film. I've been up here like 16 years. I always wore a
I
hat.
haven't. Private
Mike,
meeting.
are you going to start that kind of childish behavior here?
Oh, come on.
Now, come on, Mike.
You've been
That,
tired
why
of
did,
it
when you
all
were the
year.
president, why didn't you tell me as the clerk to not wear a hat?
Please scream at citizens.
Jeez, Mike,
Please
that's
scream at citizens.
how ridiculous. Okay, anybody else?
You guys haven't done the assignments.
They don't have to do it this meeting.
Police liaison, that's what you said this whole
The
point of
what?
this meeting
What?
was. Police liaison,
Oh, those are
streets.
some, yeah. Well, I was waiting for, anybody else in the audience got anything to say? The appointments, the council appointments. I'd like to appoint Al Beavers to area plan. Appoint Jen Menengo to finance and police. Stan Kiger to streets. Ashley Stevenson to building and maintenance. And myself to police and personnel.
Payback time. Nothing
So,
more than retaliation.
uh,
If you want to hear from the audience.
At the
nothing more than
podium.
Retaliation.
Yeah, good. Any comments from the audience?
Yes, I just asked, you know, you yelled at Ashley for having his name tag over there when he came in.
I didn't
Yet
yell
you
at
were
Ashley at
sitting-
all. I
Yet
didn't
you
yell
were
at Ashley.
sitting in the president's seat. You know, Al was in Ashley's
Ron says they
original
don't have
seat.
to
You
step
asked
up
him
to
why
the
he didn't
podium.
sit in his original seat. Al was in it. You know,
I don't know.
you guys, you four have figured all this out. You've not put Ashley on
Well-
anything or asked his opinion, and yet he's a senior member. I don't think I expect that from you, Ron. I didn't expect it from Jen, Allen's band.
So
Well,
where's
Stan, I
where's
did.
the
I didn't
senior
expect it from
figure?
Jen or Allen.
Where does the senior figure go? I've never heard that in all the years up there.
You would be a senior member as well.
Yeah, so-
But they didn't ask Ashley his opinion. Al hasn't called him, Jen hasn't called
Well,
him.
we walked in here and they were
And
all
yet you
assigned.
met with, the four of you have met and decided all this. Is that correct, Jen?
Decided what?
All of these committees. Apparently, you said nothing. None of you have said a word. Ron has spoke for all of you. So this is how the meetings will be ran, right? Ron speaks and you guys all
Well, I
sit
think
down.
Whoa, this is my first step
Al
into the
has
water.
renegaded a little bit, but he will be punished severely by Cindy for that, because that's not tolerated. I want
Okay,
you
guys,
to
all
know-
right, all right.
I would also like you
Throw
guys
her
to
out,
know that
Ron.
originally,
Just throw her out.
4 or
Cindy.
5 years ago, Mr. Kohler and Ms. Marsh wrote a letter to send to all of Dayton, because Ashley was so wonderful. Elect Ashley. As soon as he went against what they wanted, the dog starts reporting, and he's terrible, and the lies start. Done the same thing to Mr.
Well,
Harris,
good,
done the
okay.
same thing to Ms.
Exposure
Nice,
and transparency.
And-
did the same thing to Tyrone. You three will be no
Were
different.
you, let me ask
You
you
will be
something,
no
were you at
different.
the fire station when I gave my little speech?
Yes, I was.
What did you think?
And I appreciated that, but you're not showing that today.
No, this is a whole different hat.
Right, but I think if you are a new guy, you're taking all your orders from Mr. Kohler, and yet you're not asking another member who's been on the board, not just this past term, but was on before that.
But don't you think I'm asking pertinent questions to try and get to the
I-
bottom
I-
of things?
I do think that. But it's also I think everybody here realizes who's running the show. and I
that,
think-
that would have been expected, right?
I was hoping differently, because
There's
that's
3
not
new
the
people.
campaign
Yeah,
that you
she's
ran
over
on,
there.
Al. When Jennifer interviewed you, you said you're your own man, you're your own individual. And yet, you've asked some questions, but you still went right along.
I did, and for good reason. This is my first rodeo.
Okay, then why would you not ask another member what his thoughts were?
Are you indicating, are you specifying?
That question was actually asked by Ron.
I asked
No, I'm
Ashley,
asking
I asked,
you.
Ron is the president.
I asked
Right.
all the
But this
council
was all
members.
decided before you guys came in tonight.
What was decided?
Of course,
was
it's a
Joe-
fantasy football game right now.
Yeah, it's fancy, all right.
I mean,
I said
you
what I wanted to say.
gotta give us
Just
credit for
remember,
even being here
Ron
and
wants to
getting
make it
into
out-
office.
Yes, Ron wants to make this out that the people have spoken. All we heard for 4 years was 90% of the town backs him. If that was the case, the elections would have never been as tight and close as they all were.
Because of
Ron,
Ashley's
he beat
lies.
Ashley by 2 votes. Yet everybody you said hated Ashley.
I
Everybody
didn't
hated
say
him.
everybody.
Oh, yeah, everybody hates him. They want this whole board gone.
All right,
There was
all right.
5 or 6 votes difference.
Apparently you have a problem and you're holding, you know, we could
I'm
go, we could go,
speaking my
listen,
mind.
we could go.
And I've listened to this shit for
But
4
that's it.
freaking years.
If
This
you,
is
if
not
you wanna
fine.
use that kind of language.
Oh, good.
If you
I'm
wa-
go.
If you wanna use
That's
that
right.
kind of language, we will have to ask you to leave.
Ron,
No,
I've
no,
heard
no.
you say it
She
in
done
meeting
well
after
here because
meeting.
This is our first meeting, but take a deep breath.
No, you
This is not to be continued on
maybe Jen.
now. We're almost close to adjourning.
Just remember that you also work for the other half of the town. Okay, the town is pretty evenly split right now.
Yes.
Okay? So just remember, I would hope, I'm asking, I know Ron's not gonna change his mind and Stan is gonna do whatever else, or Ron tells him. I'm hoping that you and Jen can look past that and maybe talk to the marshal, maybe talk to Mark, there's a lot of people here that's, Michelle, you have excluded all of them.
They have
Already.
talked to
How do you think I've excluded them?
Just
No, and me
please,
personally, how do you
just
think
a
I
meeting
excluded them?
just please listen to them, listen to what people have to say. I would talk to your,
Did you
Well,
just hear?
I need to talk to Michelle pretty quick, because I gotta get
Yes.
reimbursed.
Jen has talked to both of them, I think Al's talked to both of them, and Al and Ashley, we.
well, I would
tried-
hope that you would take Ashley's calls if he has, would
I
like to talk
intend to
to you.
meet with Ashley and talk to him more about what he's done,
Well,
in a good way.
And I hope Jen, the same. I hope that you
Okay.
can look past, I know that you've always been a big supporter of Cindy's, and we watch, you know, all your stuff. So, we hope that you can be neutral and look at both
Well,
sides.
I think they will be neutral, and
Well, it's
because I
not
never
showing
changed
that
my
way
mind,
tonight.
I fought for 2 years on that subdivision, changed my mind, didn't I?
Just see what happens the first time that you go against them on a big issue. You will have a write-up a mile long, the lies will start, you're corrupt, you
Okay.
get free houses, you know, you have the builder at your house every
Okay,
day.
that's
Well,
enough.
one thing I
Yeah.
won't do is I won't take $12,000 from this town and spend it on an engineer that steals somebody's
It
land
wasn't
and runs
stealing
roads
someone's
through it.
land, it was to make roads.
That's exactly what happened, and that's what I taught the engineer, exactly what
How
happened.
come when the same plan was
Okay,
for
let's
South Street,
close the
that was,
meeting.
that was the same exact
Make a
plan for
motion
South
to
Street?
Close, second it. All in favor of closing the meeting?
We know how it's gonna go.
Yeah, 4 years of hell.
Yeah.
Like the 4 years we just went through? Is that what you're saying?
Cindy, we know you're running the show.
Yeah,
You
yes.
just told him what he was supposed to say. You told him this is what you need to do. And Ron goes, can I interrupt Cindy? Can I talk, please?
Here's the letter I wrote. Oh, I'll have to
Here's the letter I wrote.
Why don't you move out of the neighborhood then?
Yeah.
Someplace you must not like the other.
I love my home. You're the one that has a problem with
I don't
it.
think just unincorporate you and get you the hell out of town.
Would you like to repeat that for the camera, please, Tammy?
I have something to say to you, but not on camera.
Oh, why not?